I just feel like it's a very community-driven conference. It also has a lot of quality, and people are just nice. Hi, my name is Sarah, and this is Asian Conf in Dornbirn.
Amazing venue. Austria is beautiful. Meeting all of the people in the community and getting to go and hang out and ski.
Thank you for the introduction, yeah.
You're welcome, that was the fastest one, man.
No, it's a really shitty clickbait title, that's true, yeah. I didn't know how to call it, honestly. Rethinking SPAs, that's what it got, yeah. Let's start with a short story, yeah. So I started my first job as a web developer in 2009, actually, yeah. This is more than 10 years ago, as a student in a small company, and of course what we did back then was jQuery, right? Everybody used jQuery. jQuery was great at its time. It solved a lot of issues we had. It actually fixed the different bits between the browsers. That's what was its USP, so we really liked it. It made us a lot faster. It increased our developer velocity, we could say. And we were very happy with it. And I remember I switched company in 2011, and there was another framework which was called Knockout. I don't know if few of you know maybe Knockout. It was one of the first MVP or MV whatever, not really sure about it, frameworks. And it was really, really cool because it changed our way of thinking about JavaScript, right? Till then, JavaScript was hacking the DOM. This is what we did with JavaScript. And with Knockout, we first realized, or at least we as a team back then, first realized JavaScript is much more, right? We can really write full applications only in JavaScript, right? And I think lots of people started to think like this with early adopters like Knockout, and a lot of frameworks like Ember.js, Backbone.js started at this time. And we found out, okay, JavaScript is really powerful, yeah? And then in 2012, I again worked in another company, so at this time I switched companies very often, and they used AngularJS there. And I remember, like yesterday, I said to my colleague, oh my God, how could we ever have built applications without AngularJS, right? I was really so amazed back then. I said, this is the way how I want to do it forever, right? It felt so much easier, so much simpler back then, yeah? And I was really enthusiastic about AngularJS back then. My first conference actually was in 2014 at NG Europe. I was a big fan of AngularJS, and I went there. The problem was at this conference, IDIOMATIC, the core contributor of AngularJS, said, okay, we will not continue working on AngularJS anymore, we'll replace it with something else. So this stopped a little bit my enthusiasm about AngularJS, but it's fine. It gave me the possibility to move forward to React mainly in 2015, and I stick to it, of course. We did all the other frameworks also because some clients want also to do them, so Vue.js and Angular, and these are the big three, I would say, right? So why do I tell you this? Why do I tell you my personal JavaScript history, right? It's not so different maybe like the one from you. Well, in this area, wow. I got this new thing. So actually, in this area between 2012 and 2015, right? In 2016, I got an email. I got an email from a friend of mine who was back then CTO at a big insurance company, actually. And he wrote me an email and said, hey, David, we need project support. We are currently considering to migrate our project from AngularJS to React, right? Do you have capacity to consult us in this? And there are two interesting things in this email, right? The first one is, do you have capacity to consult us, right? Okay, yeah, I was freelancing back then. I said, yeah, sure. Sure, I have capacity. I work now for Square Solutions as a lead engineer, and I say, hey, come on, write an email there. They will tell you if I have capacity, right? So this is the easy part. Do you have capacity, right? I don't have a problem with this question. But the harder part is, do you want to consult us during the migration from AngularJS to React, right? So the first question is, who does this, right? Who thinks it's a good idea to migrate a project from AngularJS to React, right? You couldn't even migrate from AngularJS to Angular, right? How should you even migrate from AngularJS to React, right? So the first thing I thought when I got this email, I said, okay, let's do it like this, right? But yeah, this was my intuition. But I have this problem in my brain, right? So every time I hear something, I think, okay, this sounds challenging. I start to like it, right? And that's the same thing what I did there, right? I said, okay, AngularJS to React sounds totally stupid, sounds totally impossible. Maybe I should try it. Yeah, maybe we should really try to do this. And so we had this huge application, AngularJS, more than 7,000 components. It was really massive. I've never seen a massive application back then, yeah, like this. 6 people, 2.5 years worked on this so far. So what could we do? Of course, minor refactorings, right? Shifting a few bits, going an iterative approach. No. We said, hey, let's burn this shit and let's build it from scratch, right? That's what we did. I like this meme. I love it. That's fantastic. That's what we did, and we really wasted a lot of money, actually. That's what you see now, right? This is exactly what we did, yeah? We spent actually a ton of money because we said, okay, we need to rebuild this. And at this point in time, it made somehow sense. We said, okay, there is no way to migrate from AngularJS to React. We cannot even do this, right? There are no code mods, there's nothing, right? There's total different concepts. How should we do this, right? So we did this, and the project was quite successful. So I was really happy, actually, about the result of this project. So I helped them for 5 months or something like this. And after those 5 months, we already had the first beta version online, so it really went very, very good. And I moved on then, went to other projects, and then this summer, and this is why I'm actually standing here, this is why I'm doing this talk, because it thought it would be maybe an interesting story to share. This summer I got an email, another one from the same guy. He wrote me, hey David, we could again need your support. We're stuck with React version 0.13, right? So this is a version from 2015 or 2016, something like this. Yeah? And he said actually that the main problem is that they didn't find developers anymore who want to do this stuff, right? This is actually the main problem if you stick with these old versions, right? And we have no clear vision how to migrate to 16. Okay? Cool. Good. Yeah, I mean, oh. It's just a story, yeah. So at this time, this summer, this spring actually, when I got this email, the application had more than 10,000 components, yeah? But I said, okay, migrating from one framework version to another framework version, how hard can it be, right? Yeah, should not be that hard, yeah? This is what I saw, this is what really happened, yeah? This is me or our team, and I thought it's a perfect meme for a snowboarding or skiing conference, right? So this is us, right? And the snow is basically Webpack, yeah? All the time. Webpack and all the inherited dependencies we got in this project, yeah? So actually, and then also some breaking changes in React itself, but mainly this whole stuff around, yeah? There's tons of dependencies which didn't fit then anymore after migration and stuff like this, right? So again, shitty, right? So what do we do with a 10,000 components React.js application version 0.13? Any ideas? Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's jump back to this slide maybe. That this makes all sense why I gave you this kind of introduction. Yeah. Well, if you take a look at this slide, what those frameworks mostly have in common is that they are dead, right? And I don't think that I don't want to blame any of those frameworks. Really, that's not my intention. I like all of them. jQuery is great, was really great back in its days. AngularJS is still, it made a big step in the way of how we created web frameworks or how we created web apps, yeah? But they are dead. Of course, people will say Ember is not dead. Yeah, I know Ember is not dead. They're still working on it. But how many new projects do you see in Ember, right? It's just not the thing anymore, okay? Maybe. And again, I don't say that Ember is bad. I don't say it died because it was bad. That's not the thing, what I'm saying, yeah? But it's not really a thing anymore, right? So why do all these frameworks actually die? That's the question, right? So the life of a web framework, this is for sure a question you had in your life. How does the life of a web framework look like, right? So it starts when it gets born. At some point in time, somebody thinks, okay, we have a problem at a certain point in time and we want to solve it. Let's build a framework. Sounds like a good idea. So somebody creates this framework, lots of commits, and the framework grows. But the important thing on this slide is not the framework line, it's this arrow here, right? Because this is the web platform, okay? And at some point in time, the gap between the web framework and the web platform gets huge, right? And this is what actually Igor Miner said in 2014 at this NG Europe. He said, we cannot keep track of the web platform anymore. We cannot support AngularJS anymore because the web involved in a way that we cannot support this with our old assumptions, our old thinking, right? And this is what to all those dead frameworks happened, right? They died because the gap between the web platform and the framework itself got too big, and when the web platform starts to move on, when we, for example, have ECMAScript modules, right? Then why do you need a module system in Angular, right? It makes no sense most of the time. And at this point in time, we cannot keep track of the web platform anymore. We cannot use the natural features we get in the web platform anymore, and the framework gets legacy, right? This is what happens most of the time. So what to do, right? Why did React actually survive that long? Because in my opinion, React had this big advantage of staying very, very close to JavaScript all the time, right? This was always the main design idea, to stick very close to the core fundamentals of JavaScript. I always say, if you learn Angular, you need to learn Angular, right? If you learn React, you need to learn JavaScript, right? Because if you learn Angular, you need to learn all these crazy directives and things which you put in the DOM somewhere, but if you learn React, it's more or less just a render function, yeah? So that's why I think, in my opinion, survived that long, yeah? This quite old library React already, yeah? And the problem is frameworks work until they hit the frame, yeah? I like this saying, I don't know who did it, but I remember it. And it's really like this, they work until you hit the frame. And at some point in time, you hit the frame and they will stop working, yeah? They will not support you anymore in what you're doing. And so it's always the same thing, right? We have this old stuff, whatever it is. I really I just want to disclaim this again. I don't want to blame here any framework or anybody. I just say we have this old stuff, and usually we burn it and rebuild it, right? That's what we do. Does anybody know the Netscape story? Really? Can you put your hands up? Oh, that's good. So the Netscape story, I will tell it for the rest very shortly. So Netscape is a thing for everybody. It was a big browser back then. Actually, he enabled us to do JavaScript, or he enabled the way how JavaScript evolved. So in 1996, there was version 4 of Netscape, which was the main browser. 80% of the users used version 4 of Netscape back then. And the Netscape team was trying to build a new version. And what they say is, okay, we have a lot of technical debt here. We cannot move on with this version, with this fundament of Netscape. We need to rebuild it. We need a complete rewrite, right? And somehow they convinced management to say, okay, we need to rewrite this, right? And then there was Netscape version 6. So there was not even a version 5, which was released in 2000. Okay? So 4 years, no new Netscape version. So what does this mean if you don't release 4 years a new version of a product? Firefox didn't win, unfortunately, back then, yeah. Somebody else won. I don't want to mention its name. But it doesn't matter, yeah. Of course, other products start to use this time and evolve, and then people start to look left and right and say, okay, we use something else, right? And this is a figure of the usage share of Netscape, right? And here you see the phase when they were developing or redeveloping their new version, right? So once it hit the market was already gone, yeah? And this is why Netscape died, actually, because they said, okay, we will in a big bang rewrite this whole thing, because this framework, the technologies we are building upon doesn't fit to the assumptions anymore, doesn't fit the technology, doesn't fit the purpose, doesn't fit the needs anymore. So again, this old tech stack, whatever this is, we replace it with a new tech stack, right? So what to do? What to do with our 10,000 components React application, right? Just was looking if she didn't fall off the table again. I think that's exactly. So what to do? Well, just stop using frameworks. This is one of the guys said in the meetings, and at the beginning, I said, yeah. The problem with this meme is that everything looks smart in this meme, yeah? Even if somebody says, stop using frameworks, right? But then we went out for a few beers, not too many, honestly. Not too many, and we were thinking about what this idea of not using a framework at all, just sticking to pure JavaScript or whatever we have, right? And the discussion evolved, and we said, okay, actually, the idea is interesting, yeah? You know, the problem in my brain, it sounds interesting, let's talk about this, right? And then we met on a whiteboard, of course. Everybody meets on whiteboards with Post-its these days. So we met on a whiteboard with Post-its, and we said, okay, what do we actually gain from a framework? What are the advantages we get from a framework? First of all, component-driven development. That's the obvious point, right? This is what all those frameworks brought us. They brought us a way to not build huge web pages anymore, but to compose our web apps with components. Component composition, we could say, right? So start with a small component, combine it together, and get pages and whole apps by doing this. So this whole way of component-driven development emerged from single-page applications, right? Before we did more pagination, stylish, driven development, whatever to call it, yeah? So this is an obvious point, but it's also obvious that this USP, this unique selling proposition from single-page applications to support us in component-driven development, we could say it's not needed anymore, right? Because, sorry, this is coming later, yeah? So let's finish the Post-its first, right? So another thing what frameworks usually bring us is state management, yeah? Most of the frameworks have an opinion at least, or also have some implementations to support us in managing global or local state, right? If you think of React, we have for local state now hooks, and for global states we can usually use Redux or stuff like this. In Angular, it's anyway, or in Vue.js components are anyway stateful, and services are also stateful, so there is anyway inherited state more or less. We usually also have dependency injection, not in all frameworks, but sometimes people really like these concepts of IOC containers, and that's why they move to frameworks and say, okay, this is a benefit. Another guy said a router, and that's true, yeah, most of the frameworks come with routers. They support us in composing our applications. They mainly also support us in lazy loading, different parts of our applications. Another guy said CLI, so they come with a CLI, and that's a big point actually, yeah. CLIs, in my opinion, a big point for frameworks, yeah. So you can scaffold whole Vue or Angular or React applications just by a few clicks or by a few commands, yeah? And that's amazing, actually, yeah? So this gives us, again, a lot of speed as developers, yeah? And then when we had these 5 Post-its, we said, okay, what else? Okay, we said maybe a bundler, maybe some kind of compiler, transpiler, but that's somehow part of the CLI. Lazy loading, as I mentioned earlier, is anyway part of the router usually. So what else? And we didn't found that much anymore, right? We said, okay, these are mainly the points which we get from these single-page application frameworks. So again, we thought, how hard can it be, right? How hard can it be to do this without a framework, right? And then we were going through the post-its, as I already started before. Okay, now this was our hashtag, framework independent. Yeah, so we were really religious about this. Yeah, let's try to do this. Yeah, without a framework. Yeah, we were thinking about this a lot back then. And when we went through these components, to this post-it, we started again with component-driven development, yeah? And as I said, this was one of the USPs of SPAs, right? This is why we loved them, actually, or why we started also to love them, because it changed the way how we develop web applications. And the interesting thing is that somehow we could say this USP isn't needed anymore, because it's part of the web platform now, right? We have web components, so we can do this without a framework. We can say, okay, we just use web components. They are natively available on the web. And I know people are saying, okay, web components, there's this great post from Rich Harris who says, well, I don't use web components are not so good. This post is great, I fully agree, I like it a lot. But what he actually says, or what most of the criticism about web components is that if you go to webcomponents.org, that's the resource page of web components, and if you go there and say, hey, so I just summarize you the article that you don't have to read it. Yeah? Disable JavaScript here, reload the page, and you will see nothing, right? This is what the criticism about web components is. And I can understand this, yeah? This could be better. But on the other hand, how many single-page applications do you see if you disable JavaScript, right? So it's somehow the same problem. So for us, it was not an issue. We said, okay, web components are fine, but we don't want to build them with the native APIs. We use something like Skate.js or a Stencil or Svelte, which also compiles or transpiles to web components. Yeah. No, these are libraries. These are not frameworks. We will talk about this in a second. Yeah. The difference between a framework and a library is that the framework tells you what to do, and the library, you tell a library what to do, right? So it's a bit the inverse direction, yeah? But we will come to this in a second. So for component-driven development, we had solutions, right? We had solutions actually directly from the web platform, yeah? For global state management, we were, of course, thinking like Redux and Flux, yeah? They're actually some implementation for different frameworks, but we wanted to stay technology agnostic. So we thought about Akita, which is not really a Redux implementation. It's more like a repository pattern, but I liked it a lot back then. But then we thought, okay, what about RxJS, right? And then someone said, okay, RxJS is a streaming library. Well, what is it to do with state management? And we, at least our opinion is that RxJS is, if you use RxJS subjects, so streams more or less, it feels a little bit like Redux without the whole ceremony, right? You can use it quite good. You can use streams quite good as global state management tools. And that's what we were thinking about, to just use pure RxJS here to manage our global state. Yeah. Then about the CLI, this was the trickiest part. There is something which is called Hygen, which I used back in the days. I was not fully happy about it. So we wanted actually to don't go into detail about this discussion. Then somebody said Angular CLI, right? And I said, okay, just another Angular fanboy. Okay, Angular CLI. Cool, thank you, but we need something which is technology agnostic. And then he said, no, but Angular CLI supports something which is called schematics. And with schematics, you can define your own templates. You can do whatever you want, actually. And he did some prototyping, and he came up with a solution where he defined a few schematics, and we really scaffold our projects without any Angular in there, right? So we really just used the CLI generation tool for scaffolding, and it turned out to work really, really well. Yeah, they started to use this then also on the backend side for the microservice architecture. So this was really a success story, the Angular CLI here. Dependency injection. Well, there is not really something, in my opinion, which works. There's University.js, which is kind of old school, and we just said, okay, then try it without it. Yeah, let's keep it away. Yeah, let's don't do it. Yeah, and then we were thinking about the router, and there's a really nice library about the router. There is a library which is called Vardin router. I don't know if you know Vardin. Maybe some people with a Java background know it. And it is actually a client-side routing for web components. So all you do is you define a small You download a small library, you bind it to an outlet, and then you define your routes. And it has a few neat features we needed. So of course, all the classical stuff like child routes and stuff like this, and parameters, and all these things. But for us, as it's a really big application, it was important that we supported some kind of lazy loading. Yeah. So you can define a bundle, and based on this bundle, you load the component or the bundle then when you really hit this path. Yeah. And for us, this was a perfect fit. Yeah. So we said, okay, let's go with this. Let's really try it as small as possible with these things here. So we had component-driven development with web components, with global state management, with ArcShares, we had a CLI, kind of a CLI, and we had a router with the web component router. Okay. Good, back again. That sounds nice, yeah? This is really a nice idea, but how do you want to do this here, right? So again, we had the possibility, Big Bang or somehow an iterative approach, yeah? And I think we learned from the past, and we thought, okay, we must find something more iterative. We cannot do this again anymore. People will kill us if we do this again, yeah? So let's think of something else. What we did actually, we did a lot of, there's a latency actually. Yeah, we draw a lot of whiteboards. Thing about our application, actually, every picture we draw had the same result. Yeah, we have a big ball of mud, right? This was the ultimate result of all these drawings. Yeah, this felt like spaghetti. It doesn't taste like this, but it feels like this. All is glued together. Yeah, it's. And then we did a lot of, this domain-driven design and thinking about the core domains and bounded context stuff. And then it worked out good. We said, okay, we have a small part which we can really take out, right? And start with our new approach. This was the user profile. So it was an e-commerce platform and quite huge one. I guess maybe you even used it already. So it's really in production. And we really had to think a lot about the domain, and I never worked in the e-commerce domain till then, and we really had to think what can we take out, and we started with the whole user profile and the whole user editing flow. Yeah, so we took this thing here and said, okay, that's it. Let's try to get it out. We just linked it with a hyperlink more or less to the old application, and we said, okay, let's take it out, let's rebuild it, or let's migrate it to our new stack. And we used Svelte and Rollup, and it really worked fine, right? And sometimes in the life of programming, you have this feeling when you type into the keyboard and it feels good, right? You know what I mean, right? You sometimes have this if you design a class, or if you build something and it feels really good, right? You cannot really explain it, but it felt really, really good. And we did this in one sprint actually. So we really achieved this in 2 weeks. Of course, we were very motivated and enthusiastic, and we did this, yeah? And it felt so good that we said, okay, we want to continue with this, yeah? And this application itself had a huge problem for search engine optimization, as most of those legacy single-page application projects have. And we said, okay, let's tackle this issue. So hold this customer public-facing landing page-ish stuff, yeah? So we tried to, oh, sorry, forgot one thing. We extracted all this stuff, of course, in a component library with web components. So as I mentioned, Svelte compiles to web components. So we started to build up a component library. Yeah. And the next thing was this landing stuff. And I usually don't say this, and I usually don't say I love frameworks. But we said, okay, let's go with Gatsby because this is the perfect fit what we need here. Yeah. And I was never more happy about a decision I did in my professional life when it comes to technologies. And Gatsby was really perfect here. Yeah? We said, okay, we cannot use those web components here because this doesn't really fit the static page generation and web components. This didn't work out, at least back then. And we really just said, okay, let's make it more or less an independent thing with Gatsby. They have their own component library. It's the search engine optimized components, and here we have more like the internal stuff if a user is already logged in. Yeah? And we continued with this. We continued a lot. And then we had this product details stuff. So this whole products, clicking on products, writing reviews, writing comments. And the other, so we were just a small team of 5 people which were doing this kind of prototyping here actually. And the other teams looked to us and said, hey, we also want to do this, right? Because it feels so fast what you're doing. Of course, right? This is not a big surprise. If you work in a legacy React application with 10,000 components, whatever you do afterwards feels fast, right? You can start to write pure JavaScript for Internet Explorer 7 and it will feel fast again, right? And it really, of course, it was faster, yeah, it's clear. And they said, okay, we need to also dig into this. And then I said, but we don't want to go this road what you proposed, we want to go with Angular. And I said, okay, doesn't really fit our philosophy, yeah, it's a framework, we actually want to get a little bit rid of them. But okay, I mean, who am I, right? If the team wants to go with a framework, if the team says we have capabilities in this framework, we know how this framework works, they should decide, right? I don't like that framework decisions are always made by people who are far away from the keyboard, right? The people who work with this stuff should decide what they should do. And then we said, yeah, let's go, do whatever you want actually. All we need from you is a web component at the end because we need to plug it into our web component router, right? So they went with Angular there. Actually, it turned out to be quite nice because they used Angular elements and they exposed the whole app as a component, and we could really simply put it in our router, right? And they used our web components, which we started to build here, and we started to merge things together, and the component library grew, right? And then we kept on going, and we started to migrate other parts of the problem of the project. Yeah, we used HyperApp. This also a very, very nice library. Of course, you could say, okay, why did you use HyperApp? No, yeah, we like to try it out, honestly. So life is too short to not try out things. And HyperApp is also very cool. It's another micro framework, and it's really very tiny. And what we used, of course, HyperApp with some web components and a little bit of RxJS. And this was super, super fast again, yeah. And after this, we said, okay, actually, we see a pattern here, right? So let's say we're using web components as our component library. So the reusable components should all be web components. You can write them with whatever you want to do, right? You can write them with HyperApp, you can write them with Svelte, you can write them with Stencil, whatever you want to do, right? They shouldn't increase a specific size. They should be small and tiny, but at the end it must be a web component, right? Then we said, okay, between the communication here, when this application more or less wants to communicate with this one, it's done over an Redux stream. So we had a few streams, actually 4, well documented, even in TypeScript, so we knew which messages we put in there and how we can read them out. And we said, okay, this is our global state manager more or less, right? And this was just a tiny small library, RxJS. Yeah? And then we had our beautiful web component router, right? It just took the path and returned a web component. And it could be a very small stencil component, or it could be the whole Angular application as one component, right? We didn't care. They did, of course, their own internal routing then after a specific base path, but it worked really nice together, yeah? And this is how we wanted to get rid of this big ball of mud, right? And we were explaining this to people, and then somebody said, okay, congratulations, this is JavaScript fatigue, right? You're back in the game from 2018, yeah? So you have tons of frameworks, nobody knows actually what you're using. You're using HyperApp, I never heard about this, what is this, yeah? Why do you use Svelte? Why don't you just use React or Angular or Vue.js, right? What everybody else is using. And this is, of course, a very valid point. Yeah, the technology footprint of this whole application architecture is amazing. You can start to use whatever you want here, right? Nobody tells you don't use it. Yeah. At the end, we must have a web component. Yeah. And of course, this is a real problem. Yeah, because it's hard for people to shift between those teams and to help others out. Yeah. But for us, this was still a good fit because we said we don't care actually. Yeah, I mean we think it's actually an advantage for people to have the freedom to use the right tool for what they want to do, right? And we said what we actually want to have, we want to have idiomatic JavaScript, right? And if I come back to the slide I had before, this was the framework problem, right? Where we said, okay, at some point in time the framework getting too far away from the native web platform, and we cannot continue, and it gets legacy. And this is what actually we did, right? This is the web platform, and we picked very, very small parts and said, okay, let's use a small set of libraries, yeah? and let's start to work with them. Yeah, let's go with RxJS. Yeah, let's go with our web component root and go with other things. Yeah, and also use things which we got natively from the web platform, right? Like web components and lots of other things which will come. Yeah. So they changed a lot, yeah. They will change a lot, yeah. There were service workers, there were web components, there will be WebAssemblies in the future. I'm 100% sure, yeah, that web components will change the way how we will build web applications. 100% sure, yeah. This will change a lot once it's really, it really has general availability and it can manipulate the DOM, of course, yeah. It will change a lot how we build our web applications, and from this point of view, we said, okay, we want to stay close to this, right? Because we want to gain these advantages. Once WebAssemblies are available, we want to not say, okay, we cannot use it because our framework doesn't support this anymore. We want to stay close to the web platform, and that's what we actually try to do, yeah? And this gives us a lot of flexibility, of course, based on two main reasons, yeah? This is actually the summary of the talk, we could say, yeah? We can be polyglot here now. We can, as I said, we have this JavaScript fatigue for sure, but we can use the right tool for the job. Yeah, we can really say, okay, in this situation we want to use React. In this situation we want to use Angular. Yeah, whatever fits best for the team, whatever fits best for the problem. And the second thing, we can be idiomatic, right? We are able to evolve with the web platform, right? So we don't have this issue of saying, okay, we cannot. We are somehow locked by a framework or somehow locked by a dependency. We can really try to stick as close as possible to the web platform. Yeah? So maybe, and this is the description of the talk title, yeah? Maybe let's rethink the impact of frameworks. Let's rethink the impact frameworks have on our web apps since they're web native. Yeah? So maybe really start to think what the web platform already gives us these days, yeah? And maybe let's think, okay, maybe we don't need these huge monolithical frameworks anymore, right? Maybe we can just compose a few small bits and use the web platform itself. So maybe let's stay web native and don't go with frameworks. Thank you very much. My name is David Leitner. I hope this was useful.
Are you ready for questions, David? Are you sure?
I need a beer. No, yeah, let's ask.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
So a lot of the information I get about web components isn't really based on anything factual. I want to learn a lot. I see a lot of people speak negatively.
Yeah, I know.
This
It depends mainly on how you use them, right? So we made this clear decision for everything which must be seen by non-human people, which maybe don't have JavaScript, which must be very highly accessible. Are we doing with Gatsby? So we really build it to static content at build time already, yeah? And for the stuff which you usually see after login, right, where you can expect people to have JavaScript, we started to use web components. Yeah? So I think this whole discussion about web components is a little bit too religious for me, yeah, honestly. The problem is that they are not well supported, or they were for a long time not well supported in the React framework or in the React library. That's why people were doing this kind of artificial fight, in my opinion, which should have not been there. But I think it will, for many use cases, be a good fit. Yeah, because why not? Yeah, it's part of the web. Why shouldn't we start to use it? Yeah. You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any?
First of all, wow, I'm blown away. I think I feel like you on the NG Europe, that I'm completely lost. And my question is does Angular and Facebook and Google know about your small movement? Is the FBI after you?
No, actually, this is the first time I talked about it. I didn't have time to post about it. No, I don't know. I don't think so.
And
Maybe Rick is here now. Facebook knows
he went
about
to
it.
sleep.
Ah, shit.
I mean, he didn't sleep during the entire night. It's kind of amazing he stayed this long.
Yeah.
And
No,
then the maybe is a bit disturbing me. So maybe rethink it, or should we not? I don't know what the goal was of your talk.
I don't want to tell you how you should think. Yeah, I think this is, we at Square work mainly in a financial insurance e-commerce domain, right? These are huge applications. This is really massive stuff. This is very enterprise-ish. So in this area, it definitely makes sense to not go with one single framework for such big applications, in my opinion. But if you're building something small and you must really be fast, yeah, maybe React or Angular is for sure still a good fit, because, of course, you have this JavaScript fatigue, right? You need to hack around the bundle again. You need to hack around with Webpack or Warlab or whatever you use, right? It's not one out-of-the-box solution, but it gives you the possibility to really take the best things you need, and it allows you to evolve over time, yeah? So I think it's really somewhere a threshold, yeah, where it makes sense at a certain point of size, yeah, and for a smaller, it maybe doesn't, yeah, maybe it's really just better to go with one thing, and as it's anyway small, it's maybe okay to rewrite it in 4 or 5 years again, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions? We have time for one more. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Is this on? Why actually have this as a single-page application? Like, why not many small applications?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Actually, this maybe didn't came out too good. This is still a single-page application, right? This runs on one instance. This has one router, which doesn't switch to page, yeah? So especially in this scenario, it made sense, yeah? But of course, you can also say you build different applications and just link them with hyperlinks, yeah? Then you usually have the problem of sharing state, right? How do you do this? You can do this with cookie, but then they must run on the same domain, right? So it's not so easy, yeah? This goes, I didn't want to say this word actually, but this goes a little bit into these micro-frontend discussions, right? Nobody actually knows about what it really is, yeah? and I think this is on a very detailed level. You have to make these decisions. Yeah, we decided to go really as a single-page application still. So as I said, this whole e-commerce thing works on one instance. It shares state over one Redux, IXJS stream, yeah, or multiple IXJS streams. And that's a little bit the design of how we did it. Yeah, but of course you could say, okay, just split into smaller applications. Yeah, this is of course also a possibility, but then of course it's just different applications. Yeah, and this has an impact on the usability. This is an impact of the look and feel if you start to split it up with all these hyperlink round trips again. Yeah. Okay.
You're free to go, David. You can breathe now. You can go to sleep.
Yeah. That's exactly what I will do.
I know.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
This is yours.